Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Research Fantasy Presents our NBA DFS picks for Sunday, April 16th, 2017. I'm your host, Nick Valinchek, better known as Nick from CWE on all of your favorite daily fantasy sites, and I'm here to talk some NBA playoff DFS. Sites are doing things a little bit differently. Today you have DraftKings, which is doing an all-day slate with all 4 games, which I thought was the route to go. FanDuel opted to make their main slate just 3 games, leaving out the Atlanta-Washington game. We will include analysis on all 4 games, just so we have all of our bases covered. Let's start things out today with the Atlanta-Washington game set to tip off in just about 3.5 hours. Should be an exciting series. The Hawks fought their way through 2 different 7-game losing streaks this season. Washington, as we know, in January was about the best team of any sport this year, quite frankly. They were just dominant. So were the Washington Capitals at that time, interestingly enough. Having nothing to do with one another. This is going to be a pretty standard, straightforward game, I would have to say. I think that you'll see some questionable tags here and there because, this is leftover information from the end of the regular season. So with that said, I wouldn't pay too much attention to that, and unless something pops on the news wires or Twitter, I would just focus on playing the core plays here. Going up against Washington, I would say I would probably focus most of my activity in the forward positions. I don't love the matchup against Gortat, but Dwight Howard is going to beat just about anybody he goes up against. There's not too many people who are going to shut Dwight Howard down. I think this is a great matchup for Paul Millsap against a set of forwards for Washington that just really couldn't get it together down the stretch. I mean, Markieff Morris was decent, then he was awful for a large swath of the season. Then he had, maybe 10 games where it was just like, put this guy in, because if you don't have him, it's all over. And he ended the season where he started right there in the vicinity of doing nothing. So Millsap, Howard, Taurean Prince has been confirmed starter for this. So, I think that puts, I don't know if that puts Bazemore on the bench, or I don't know if that puts Hardaway on the bench. I think I would probably prefer Hardaway in a game like this because I think Washington can score. We know about some of the offensive woes for Atlanta. Not going to go anything sneakier than Taurean Prince, though I don't think you have to go that route either. Usual suspects here: John Wall, Bradley Beal. Otto Porter really struggling down the stretch. Markieff Morris struggling down the stretch. Opened up some opportunity for guys like Kelly Oubre. I just don't see him being a part of what they do in game 1. Maybe he gets some time, and if he looks good, we might see more of him. You've also got Bojan Bogdanovic, who can get hot, and that's a guy I would have some serious interest in if I was trying to, really differentiate my lineups, because he has not been... When he first came over to Washington, it was a beautiful thing. They were really getting stuff done. Hasn't been the case lately. In this game, I'm mostly sticking to my guns in terms of my bigger name stars. And really, quite frankly, I might not want anyone outside Bradley Beal or John Wall. Moving on to Portland against Golden State. To me, this just jumps out as being a situation where I don't think they've established what they're going to do with Jusuf Nurkic at the time of this writing. Yes, he is a very big part of what they do right now, and if he misses, there's a huge gap in talent between him and Myers Leonard and Noah Vonleh, so that in the situation he's not playing, this looks and smells to me like it's just going to be a blowout. I'm hesitant to use guys like Lillard, like McCollum, especially considering this game is on the road. If Nurkic is in, my tune changes enough that I think I could consider putting specifically Damian Lillard into a couple of my lineups. But where they're both priced at right now, needing like 45 and 35 fantasy points to hit 5x value, it's totally possible, but I'm just not seeing it in this game. I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach. In terms of guys I would be interested in, Evan Turner and Noah Vonleh are both priced a little too low for what I think that they could do. I think Vonleh has a little more upside without Nurkic, to the point where even in a bad situation, I could see him getting 25 or 30 fantasy points. I think Evan Turner has a nice ceiling. And in this game, I'm going to put it at about 25 points, which is fine at his price. Realistically, in most situations, Evan Turner is a guy who every now and again is going to turn out a 40-point fantasy performance, but I just don't see it coming here. Moving on to the Warriors side of things, especially on DraftKings, hard to not look at Kevin Durant at 8,800. To me, that even in a situation where I'm not confident this game is going to stay close, I think that price is low enough that you're going to be able to see Durant hit his 5x value. At that price, I think you're definitely talking 6x value being in play. Terrific price on him. Price is strong on Curry too. That's another situation I wouldn't sleep on. And just going down the list, a lot of these guys, this slate was definitely the underpriced slate. When you're talking Curry at 87, Draymond at 69, Clay at 67, those are low prices for these guys, because we saw, as the season ended, we saw Curry flirting with the 10K mark. We saw Draymond in the mid-7s. We saw Clay in the mid-7s. So now you're getting a discount of almost $1,000 on all of these guys. This is a night where I don't mind just differentiating my Golden State talent, because they're going to score points. Yes, they can score 110 points in 3 quarters, which is what a lot of teams score in a game, meaning it wouldn't be unheard of for 1 to 4 of these guys to hit value. And then in terms of Golden State, I just think I'm fine sticking with that. Matt Barnes does look questionable. He's actually been ruled out. Maybe a few more minutes to Andre Iguodala, but with Durant back in the lineup, a lot of that upside is gone. Let's move to Chicago and Boston. Man, Jimmy Butler at that price, if this was the end of the regular season and they were fighting for a playoff spot, I'm all in on it. But considering he struggled to break that, when he's been priced at 10K, he's had 44.5 points, 48.75, 32.75, 50.5, and it's important that 50.5, he was at 10-2 like he is now, so he just missed 5x value. If you think there's enough value to play him on the slate tonight, I totally get it. For me, even though it's going to be chalkier, with Durant at the price that he's at, it's hard to not go that route and play Durant over Butler, especially looking down when you have Rondo, who, a narrative with Rondo has always been national TV, Rondo's just a monster, and I can remember this being true. It's something about when he's on the national spotlight, he gets turned up. And 6K, Rondo could have 30 fantasy points at the half because of what he brings to the game with his facilitating, his ability to rebound. Dwayne Wade, priced too low, 5,900. I know he didn't start the season in very good form, or rather he didn't end the season in really good form because he dealt with a pretty long-term injury. Not a situation at 5,900 I'm going to shy away from tonight. I think I'm going to be good with just about everybody else. Nikola Mirotic has upside, but I just think a lot of his upside is dependent on Wade not being in the lineup and his usage being increased. Bobby Portis at that sub 4K mark does have a little bit of intrigue to me, just because, if they need a switch up from what Mirotic brings to the game, if they're not getting it done from the 3-point range, you could see Portis get in there, and at his price, he just doesn't take too much to hit value. Boston going to be an interesting situation. I am extraordinarily curious to see what happens. They're going to update it after shoot-around. For those of you who don't know, Isaiah Thomas's sister, China, tragically got into a fatal auto accident early Saturday morning. She was only 21, so I think, this goes one of two ways. My gut reaction here is that I want shares of Isaiah Thomas. I'm pretty sure he's going to play. Like, I know that this is a really bad situation, but he knows that this is a big deal. And, sometimes you just have to quickly realize that life goes on. I know that sounds callous, but it does. And I'm not saying that just because I'd want to play Isaiah Thomas. I mean, we just lost our grandmother very quickly, literally this past Thursday. She just passed yesterday. And you just have to realize that sometimes the desire to be there is sometimes more selfish than the desire not to be. I think genuinely people enter a selfish mode. And I'm not criticizing it, but I'm just saying that, like, you have to almost think from the perspective of the person who's left us. What would they want you to do? And you'd have to assume that his sister would probably want him to play. His sister would probably want him to win. The biggest question just is, if he plays, where is his motivation factor going to be at with everything? Is he going to be... are we going to see a D'Angelo Russell performance out of him? His grandmother just passed away a couple of weeks ago, and he had a nice game, hit the game-winning shot. I could still see that being a big-time motivator. His price is at a really nice position. Hard to not look at Isaiah Thomas if he plays tonight. Same with Al Horford, 6,300 in a playoff atmosphere. I just see him as being someone who really is able to turn things up. Then we start entering the fray with guys like Bradley, Crowder, Smart, potentially Jaylen Brown as well, where if Isaiah does miss this game, people are going to have to start picking up the slack. I'm probably going to go Smart, Brown, Bradley. Bradley's price is a little too much for me right now. And we've seen Smart and Brown both do well when they've gotten minutes. Probably the most exciting game on today's slate is going to be OKC and Houston. It is going to be another battle of potential MVP candidates. Really, at the end of the day, just my opinion, but really these are the only two that should be considered for the MVP race. They didn't take games off all season. I think Russell missed one, but other than that, they both played, all the games. I think that's something to take into consideration. Houston's a tough team, putting nothing against Oklahoma City, but when you average a triple-double in modern day NBA, which hasn't been done in so long, that just tells you about the state. It doesn't necessarily tell you about the state of the basketball player who did it. It tells you about the state of everything around him. And I mean, this is like basically no other team, and I know Russ is priced high as it is, but you're talking about like he's more than double the next highest priced player on his own team, and in terms of players over 5K, like it's Russ and then it's Oladipo and then it's nothing. I mean, this Oklahoma City Thunder team, it's built to be a fun show because of Russ, but I can't really take them seriously making a playoff run here. This game being on the road, I just don't like it. Russ, just not a guy. It's really not a guy. I don't know if I want him on my radar tonight. I know that's, that could end up being a really bad thing, but I don't know. I'd rather take the sure upside of guys like Durant and fit just a bunch of mid-priced guys around him who have some upside. I'm not saying that Russ can't get it done, but if Houston comes out firing and Oklahoma City can't match that, this is a three-quarter game, and Russ finishes the night with 55 fantasy points, and that's crippling at that point. It's over. You're spending almost $14K that 5x value, he needs 70 fantasy points. And yeah, he's been a beast and a monster, but that's a tough ask for anybody. So I'm a little hesitant with Russ. On the flip side of things, I am a little bit hesitant on James Harden. I think I would probably have a few more James Harden than Russell Westbrook. A lot of people might disagree with that. And admittedly, this is the first game of the playoff series, so I don't know how things are going to pan out. Maybe we see, and I think like one of my favorite plays in this game, no questions asked, is Enes Kanter, because his price dropped, because maybe they weren't giving him as many minutes. This was a guy who was flirting with 30 minutes throughout the season, but then down the stretch, he's seen 17, 20 minutes. This caused his production to drop, caused his price to drop. I'm imagining we see 30 to 33 minutes of Enes Kanter tonight. That $4,600 price tag ends up looking awfully tempting for someone who could put up a big game. So hope you enjoyed the analysis. I think that we still have some things we need to figure out before we really can form a full opinion of what needs to be done here. Until then, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel below. Head over to researchfantasy.com. Sign up for our NBA mailing list. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter @ResearchAndWin. And see you again tomorrow.